All right, showed up at the marina. That's the boat back there, the Recreation 2. And so I'm signed in. They're going to bring my tanks over and get everything put it on the boat. I've got my gear here, so now it's just a matter of waiting for the captain and the crew to show up and the rest of the divers. Apparently, it's going to be a somewhat full boat. Said something like 12 of the 15 seats are booked. So we'll have a lot of divers out there. Should be a good day.
And it really was a good day. Our dive master Nico gave us a rundown of things on the boat and what to expect once we got offshore. And after that, it was just a matter of getting our gear ready and getting into the water. Our first dive site was this former U.S. Navy hovercraft, but before we get into that, I just want to give Aaron major points for descending in moonwalk mode. This hovercraft was an experimental test bed for the U.S. Navy, and when they decided that they weren't going to actually go with this hovercraft, they sank it right off the coast of Panama City Beach. Now's probably a good time to say that if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying this video, I would really appreciate it if you would go ahead and hit the subscribe button located below. It does a lot of good for me, and I think it means great videos in the future for you. This specific hovercraft, or landing craft air cushioned, was an experimental hovercraft that was brought down to Panama City in June of 1979 and was being tested by the U.S. Navy as an assault landing craft. It was built by Bell Aerospace, same company that makes the helicopters, and was designed in its time to carry more than 60 tons of cargo. In fact, at the time, it was the largest military hovercraft in the world. Ultimately, once testing was completed, the Navy decided not to go forward with this hovercraft. Of the two prototypes that were made, one was cut and sold into scrap. And it took a little bit of effort, but the Navy was convinced to give this hovercraft to Panama City Beach as an artificial reef. As you can tell from all of the fish and wildlife on this reef and the growth of coral that's forming around it, it has been serving its purpose well. Our second dive site of the day was on the Hathaway Bridge Span number 14. These bridges were built in 1929 to... Oh, hey, look at that giant Goliath grouper. Let's just talk about this giant fish for a little bit because this guy was amazing. He didn't seem bothered at all that we were there. He was swimming and fishing for his own meals, and he seemed to just totally be fine with us being in the area as well. Anyways, back to the Hathaway Bridge Span. Built in 1929, these bridge spans used to connect Panama City to Panama City Beach. They were disassembled to make way for a modern bridge, and in 1988, they were sunk just off the coast of Panama City Beach to serve again as artificial reefs. And just as was the case at the hovercraft, the span here was covered in marine life. We saw lots of grunts, we saw that Goliath grouper, more school of amberjack. It just seemed like no matter where you looked, this span was doing its job as an artificial reef. It just made for a very enjoyable time down on the bottom. The bridge itself sits again at about 75 feet, similar to where we were before on the hovercraft, and the water temperature today was 83 degrees down there on the bottom, so it was perfectly swimmable. I chartered this dive with Divers Den out of Panama City Beach, and I totally recommend them. The boat was great, the crew was very professional. These two dive sites, the Hovercraft and Span 14, were awesome dives, easy dives for a great day. Now it's time to get out of the water and head back in.